catch your throat for a moment. Okay, so warming up with the massage movements. Starting on your face. Over your head and neck. Shoulder. And then your heart. On the side. Off your chest. Belly. And your legs. Okay, and sit back, and your feet out. Always remember with those tapping exercises that we're not held to a particular way of doing it. You know, I always start in the same way and go through the body very methodically. You don't have to do it like that. You can do it standing, you can do it laying in bed. There's all sorts of ways. It's just a very straightforward and simple method. I mean, I've probably said before, but you know, I know I've had people say to me that they do it in bed before they get up in the morning because it helps them feel more sort of stable and together when they get up and things like that. And you can just sort of go around the body in any way you like, really. So very simple, very effective. Now letting your weight drop back. Think about your breathing for a few rounds, trying to feel that rise and fall in your belly, your solar plexus, and your chest as much as you can. The in-breath on your nose as you breathe in is sharp and clear. And the sense of just being able to let go of tightness and stiffness in your body, to release it. Generally speaking, a good image is sort of draining downwards. So this feeling I've described in another class as emptying. Just allowing your body to empty. And it's a two-way process. It's like breathing out to create the space for more air to breathe in. You release the tightness and the stiffness and gradually get a sense of your body almost filling up with something a little bit more vibrant and fluid. And you bring your feet in, come to the upright position. Being careful to maintain the same quality in your body as you do this. So you come upright, you lean forward, and then just let your hips drop back, with your head floating up. Weight in your hips and buttocks and your feet. Feeling that your upper body is supported by the lower body, by its alignment with the pull of gravity. And so maybe you're still aware of, for instance, with your breathing, that gentle expansion and contraction, rising and falling in your belly, in your solar plexus. And slowly turning your head. the shoulders. Going forwards. Hands out to your sides. Spreading your fingers out a little bit, but making sure that all the joints of your fingers are quite curved. Almost like you've just got a ball, so it's a ball of wool in each hand. And then just raising your hands a little, winding around. So in one direction, it's your little finger that leads the other fingers and they follow after, almost like they're just tied to each other at the ends, the fingers, the fingertips. And then when you go back the other way, it's the thumb leading. Easing forwards and push back. Just let the movement settle into a nice smooth rhythm and pace. One that should be quite familiar to you by now. So it's that familiarity seems to just allow the body to slip into the correct kind of movement as you become more familiar. It's almost like I sometimes say to people, you put on an old pair of shoes, and your foot seems to fit into it. So a lot of these basics begin to work on that kind of level. And it means that in the end, you only really notice them when they're not working for you, when for some reason or another, the fluidity isn't there or the rhythm isn't there. Turn a little. In the other direction. And then going around. and back the other way. And then settle down in your hips again, raise your heels, step out. Heel toes, gentle push into the floor and then back. So when you measure the step, the knee should be quite bent here. So that means that that makes it possible to just get that feeling of your foot pushing into the floor. And as you do, just muscles of the arch of your foot and your toes just softening a little. And then on the other side. And then bring the feet down. Now, hands to your sides, rotating so your palms are forwards, and then transferring your weight forwards. And then fisherman castanet. And then imagine the ball in front of you, rolling the ball, big ball into your chest. And then pigeon spreads its wings. and pushing away. Hands twisted. Open your fingers. Again, leading with your thumb edge. Come back. The fingers drop down, and the little finger edge of your hands begins to lead, and then press pause. So feel that change in your fingers. Thumb leading, and then as they wind around, it becomes the little finger leading. Now, a gentle push down through your hips. So it's often said in Tai Chi, there's always a counter movement, a balancing movement. There's a certain amount of truth in that, but in fact, what there is always is a downward movement as the prelude to every other movement. Even if we can't see it happening, we can feel it happening. And in the same way that I was saying to you, I said to you before, when you take a step, you just imagine you're on soft sand or something like that, and you're pushing your foot into the sand. In your hips and your lower back, and again in your feet. A similar sort of feeling, getting that sense of a push up that comes from that. One more of these. And then wild goose. And parting the clouds. One more time. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. One more on each side. Bring your hands around your heart. And then this time, introducing the turn in the middle two sections. It's only about 20, 25 degrees, I guess, that you're turning. It's not very far, although it looks more by the time it reaches your hands. Stand one foot, scooping the sea and looking at the sky. Your hands come down and then into grasping the tiger's ears. Good. Switch sides. And then change. Line your feet up again. And hitting the ball in front of the shoulder. Go forwards, turn, and again, notice the formation of the hand, slightly curved there. So again, as though you've got the ball resting in the palm of your hand, quite appropriate in many ways for this. But also, not too curved, because you want to feel as though imagine you're pushing your fingers into soft mud or something like that. So you don't want them bent too much. Just enough to release the strain in the joint. And this can give you a very full feeling in your hand. And that's a quality that if we were doing something like Dragon plucks the stars from the sky, when we do that plucking movement, we want to maintain this full feeling, which is quite tricky because we're changing the shape of the hand, but trying to keep the same kind of feeling. Once more. And now, cow gazes at the moon. Position your hands. Turn a little bit further. Very carefully. Do one more on each side, and then we're going to make the change into parting the wild horse's mane. So come back, one more, and then just bring your right hand down, and as you go forwards, a slight change. You're not going behind, you're going more sort of over the knee, coming back, hold the ball, settle into your right hip, and then move across to the left and turn, and then start again. Notice how close the hands slide past each other. So from the ball holding position, it's almost like they're going to scrape alongside. One more on each side. Now, hold your hands over your chest, the archer. Be careful if you're turning your head as you do this. You don't want to tighten up in your neck. Again, let's do one more on each side. Hand around, and then stirring the beans. With the movement in the upper part of your body, driving the hands. Okay, and then come back to resting. So that third of your weight in your feet, you could try just raising your heels a little if it helps you to feel that a bit more. The 2/3 gently sinking into the chair. And then, once again, just rubbing your hands together. Starting again on your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. The other side. Off your chest. Belly. Lovely. And then standing. Get your feet again in position. And just rocking your weight forwards and backwards. Just feeling the movement first in the soles of your feet, the arch of your foot. And up through your legs and knees, your hips and your pelvis. Remember, soften your knees. So that slight movement in your pelvis as you change the angle of your body. Then feeling the movement in your back and your spine. And they're gradually spreading out to the belly, solar plexus, ribs and chest. And then, once again, your arms. You're standing in the river, so you're moving against the pressure of the water. The whole movement of slightly stronger quality. Inside. And then just identifying where you want your weight to settle. And next time you come forwards, stopping the forward movement there and compensating in a sense by letting your hips drop back. Trying to feel the same progression of movement, feet to legs, spine out through the upper body, so on. Some change to the wild goose. I'm going to go back a bit, otherwise my things will disappear. And then parting the clouds. Back to rooting down and just do these three as a little sequence. The rooting down, then the wild goose, and then parting the clouds. Good. Your hands drop down. Shake out a little bit. Right. One foot forwards. As you do this, just think back to the start of the class when we were sitting back and that feeling of settling. How does it, can you remember that I described it as emptying today, didn't I? But can you sort of remember any of the sensations in your back, your hips, your shoulders. And just give yourself a moment resting on each leg after you've transferred the weight to see if you can sort of recollect that and find it again in your body in this different position. And then raising your toes and your heel as you do that. So you've got a sort of two-way movement, haven't you? You've got that draining down here as your heel comes up. As your toes come up. Remember, when you lower your toes or lower your heel, a little bit of a push into the ground. And then stepping in. So that little bit of a push actually helps with this sense of a movement through your hip, through your knee. It means that you're not rushing, I suppose, as much as anything. Actually, just establishing that link and then making use of it. And shake out. The other foot forwards. Same thing. Remembering just to make that pause, to give you a chance. Remember, it's a movement downwards. It's not a locking up of your hip or your knee or your ankle or the sole of your foot. And if you feel that you're doing that, you have to go easy with this. And as I've said before, there's a certain amount of conditioning that takes place, but we're aiming for 60% in the front leg and 70% in the back leg. But if that's too much, then everything will tense up. So in your own time, really, when you practice this, don't feel you have to go the whole way. It could just be a small movement here until you get to recognize how you can get that feeling of releasing through your leg. It's difficult to describe, but it's that same sensation as I described in the chair. So you just have to keep gently practicing this. Then you're ready for this, raising your toes and your heel. So there's an intent, an idea to sink. And in association with that, perhaps a memory of the sensations or an image like, like water draining down through your body or any of the other images that we've used. And then stepping in, and you make use of all of those and you observe what's happening in your body. And so you pick up information about how your body is responding to that, what is effectively an instruction from your mind. And you get to realize what works and what doesn't. And so that information becomes part of the intent. It's not just, it goes beyond just, oh, I want water to drip down. You know what you get to know more of what you want to do to allow that to happen. And then you've got space either in front or behind, taking a couple of steps. and then the other way. So there's always an element of trial and error when you're learning these things. That worked, that didn't. I'll do that next time, I won't do that next time, and so on and so forth. Check out. And so that intent, as I described it, becomes more detailed. It starts off, oh yeah, I want to relax, or I want to drop my weight, or I want to feel water draining through. And eventually, after a time, it's like, well, what kind of like the intent is to, you keep the image, but to do this with the hip, to do this with the foot, and so on and so forth. And it's time and practice. And as I say, a lot of that information I can't really give you because it's difficult to describe. So the exercises become the things that you learn from. And then fisherman cast a net. Shake out. And then the other side. One more time. Shake out. Go back to your chairs. So what we might think of as the content of our intent changes and develops and grows over the course of time with an art like Tai Chi. This is perfectly natural, of course. If you were, I don't know, if you were in a strange town and you fancied a cup of tea, you think, oh, that would be your intent. And then you think, I wonder if there's anywhere I can have a cup of tea or whatever. If you decide to make a cup of tea after the class, then that intent will encapsulate knowing where the tea is, where the teapot is, where the milk is, and so on and so forth. You wouldn't have to think about them separately. It would all be bound up in that same intent that led to the action. And it's important to realize that intent is always linked in with the actual act. It's not just, oh, I'd like a cup of tea and then doing nothing about it. It's actually acting on it. So much so that I sometimes think that this quality of intent as we mean it in Tai Chi actually has an overlap and an integration with the actual act of whatever it is we're intending to do. So again, you know, kind of this mind-body overlap is very important in Tai Chi. Some of those intents are things that become quite sort of subconscious in a sense. You might not even think about consciously making tea. It's just something that you do. You don't want to have to keep thinking deliberately about what's involved in rooting down, for instance, because you wouldn't be able to do anything else. A good example of that was, that idea of pushing the foot in to the floor. It took me several years to get to a point where I realized it was happening without me being very deliberate about it. It takes time to build these things. So now, hands dropping down, and embrace tiger, return to the mountain. The intent here being to really emphasize that emptying, quietening feeling, but with a certain amount of, if you like, gathering in as well. One more time. And rest. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. So
Thank
take care of yourselves. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, bye everyone.